From its hand-drawn pixel art, to the purple and dark blue hues of its sci-fi dystopia and its haunting synth-pop soundscape, Full Void will evoke nostalgia on multiple levels. But this cinematic puzzle platformer isn't mere nostalgia bait, and will very quickly draw you in further with its evocative, enigmatic storytelling and fun, challenging gameplay. I was fortunate enough to be given a code to play this game before release, so for that I'd like to thank Heaven Media as well as the devs at Out of the Bit, who I also got the chance to interview. The video of that interview is linked in the description. But as ever, despite being given a code, all opinions on the game are mine and mine alone. The work of just 8 people, this game is a short experience overall which will take you around 3 to 4 hours to beat. In that, it's around the same length as games which inspired it in the era before save states, where if you had to leave a game without finishing it and come back later, you had no option other than leaving the console on and hoping nobody turned it off in the meantime. For that, it's pretty much perfectly paced, not overstaying its welcome, but managing in your time with it to take you on quite the journey. We start off with our unidentified teenage protagonist fleeing from a machine in the woods and stumbling into a town where some terrible catastrophe has occurred. There isn't any dialogue or text in the game, and so you have to piece together the clues from what you see, not only to the fate that has befallen the world, but also to what our character is doing besides fleeing from peril, something which you'll be doing most of the time. The environmental storytelling is extremely well done throughout the game, painting a haunting picture of a world fallen to ruin where adults are nowhere to be seen, and what might be happening to the children torments your imagination. The art style, every single backdrop and cinematic scene hand-drawn, certainly complements that. As well as the cinematics which progress the story between levels, you also get a unique cinematic for each death that befalls the character. These are never gory, in line with the developers' intent to keep the game family friendly, but that takes nothing away from them and the added sense of threat they convey about the world, with the details of what happens next once more left to your own imaginings. There's certainly a sense that less is more in this suitable for all ages ethos. And sure, you won't see gore on screen, but this does nothing to dim the horror of this sci-fi world. There are still plenty of moments that will get your heart racing, and the gameplay provides enough close calls to keep you holding your breath, not to mention the unspoken potential of all the things that might be happening off-screen that are only hinted at in the things you pass by on your journey. The soundscape accompanying this is perfectly suited. The music evokes a specific sort of nostalgia that fans of 80s and early 90s sci-fi will appreciate, while in its absence the broader sound design makes the world feel incredibly large and lonely, brimming with threat. On the gameplay front, Full Void is a puzzle platformer, and as you might expect, those two elements pretty much sum up your playtime. But as you progress through the game, there's plenty of variety in both elements to keep you engaged. There are a number of different elements to puzzles. Climbable objects you can move, electronic terminals you can hack, switches you can pull, and machinery you can operate, as well as later on a companion you can get to carry out certain movements and tasks within a limited amount of moves. There are also obstacles that need to be crawled under or climbed or jumped over, sometimes with hazards attached. As the game progresses, you'll initially encounter these elements separately, before they start to combine to task your brain a bit more. Sometimes you have to not only solve the puzzle, but do so under a time pressure to avoid a pursuer or in tandem with fast and tricky platforming. This manages to keep the gameplay fresh pretty much throughout, so that even as you think you've got a handle on the mechanics, you need to keep your brain engaged in order to progress. There will be moments where what you need to do isn't immediately obvious, and in some cases where what you can see on screen isn't reachable because what you've done in that area has opened up a path elsewhere that will eventually loop back there through a different route. These can stump you in the moment, but once you realise what you need to do or where you need to go, it will seem blindingly obvious, and you'll kick yourself for not cottoning on sooner. There's no combat in the game and there aren't any boss fights, which fits with your character's vulnerability, but that doesn't mean there's no peril. Alongside the puzzles and the platforming, there will also be periodic chase sequences. These are intense, high adrenaline moments that are tightly scripted enough that the slightest hesitation can mean death, even a couple of screens later. On the whole, the gameplay is incredibly tight, polished and fun. There are nitpicks when controlling your companion in the puzzle sequences, for example. If a switch goes across 2 squares, this can result in them not pulling it as instructed because of the direction they're facing and can feel unnecessarily fiddly, but they are just that, nitpicks. Equally, on the accessibility front, even though there are only 2 inputs besides directional movement, there are certainly players who would benefit from being able to remap these on controller as you can on keyboard. But the size of the team and the nature of the game means there's not too much else to say in that area, as usual topics like subtitles don't really apply. If I'd been able to play this game as a kid in the 90s, it would have fit perfectly alongside games like Comic Zone and Heart of Darkness, feeding into my burgeoning love for sci-fi and fantasy dystopia. Getting to play it now as an adult is still a pleasure. Whilst tonally very different from something like Bramble the Mountain King, which leans far more explicitly into the gore and darkness, It's still a game which appeals strongly to me as a fan of sci-fi horror. To compare it to films, Jurassic Park may have been a PG when it came out, but that doesn't stop me rating it alongside 18s like The Terminator or Predator in terms of thrill factor. Full Void is definitely worth your time, telling a compelling story without explicit narrative, the way it looks and sounds feeding into the excitement of the gameplay. And if you're a horror fan with kids or younger siblings, then this serves as a good way to hook them into the genre without being told off because there's too much gore on screen. Let me know in the comments if you're going to be giving Full Void a go, or if you've already had the chance to play it by the time you're watching this video, what you thought of the game. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.